Despite being the 27th overall pick of the 2017 NBA draft and the Lakers' second overall pick, Kyle Kuzma has undoubtedly been one of the breakout players of the current NBA season. Standing at 6'9", Kuzma is already the perfect embodiment of the modern stretch 4. In an NBA where the elite shooters on most teams are guards, Kuzma is breaking the mold by performing as the Lakers' top perimeter shooting threat. And Kuzma can often be seen spotting up all over the three-point line, ready to knock down catch-and-shoot threes from his driving teammates after they kick the ball back out to him. In fact, Kuzma is shooting a team-high 39.6% on a considerable 5.3 three-point attempts per game. So how exactly does Kuzma do it? Well, the answer is twofold. First, he has near flawless shooting technique, which is going to be the topic of the rest of this video. And second, he has shot extremely confidently as he has carved out a role for himself in the Lakers' rotation, which is a testament to his strong mentality. So, let's take a closer look at Kuzma's technique to see what he's doing right. People have compared his shot to Klay Thompson's, and I can see why. Both have very linear shots, and both maintain straight bodies from head to toe when they shoot. This makes their forward jump very aesthetic, and it appears as if their bodies are simply floating forward through the air. In reality, this forward jump is not just for looks, but rather adds forward momentum to their shots. Think about it this way. If you want your shots to go up and forward, the easiest way to aid that is to have your body moving in the same direction, aka forward and up. If you're trying to shoot a half-court shot, is it easier to do so while standing stationary, or if you take a run-up and jump when you shoot it? Shooting a 3 takes far less effort, but once again, the amount of effort it takes lies in a spectrum, with a half-court shot at one end and a point-blank shot at the other. You don't have to jump at all to shoot from 1 foot away, or when you shoot from 15 feet away, like a free throw. When you get near the three-point line, jumping a little definitely helps you get force behind your shot, but you don't really need to jump very far forward to reach the rim with your shot. And finally, when you get behind the three-point line, you absolutely do need to jump up and forward to feel comfortable shooting. I've covered the topic of joint alignment in my last 2 breakdowns, and I want to talk about it again with Kuzma. As you can see with Kuzma, his right elbow, shoulder, and wrist are extremely close to being vertically aligned when the ball reaches his set point. This means that the second part of his shot, the extension of the arm and the eventual wrist flick, happens in a very linear fashion. Because his 3 major arm joints are close to being vertically aligned, aka sit on the same vertical plane, his right hand is in contact with the ball at the direct middle point underneath the ball. Specifically, his 2 most important release fingers, his index and middle fingers, sit directly underneath the ball. This means that Kuzma is naturally less prone to missing his shot left and right, as there is very little opportunity for horizontal force to be applied to the ball during part 2 of his shot motion. You might be wondering why everyone doesn't have this near-perfect alignment at their set point when they shoot the ball. Well, the answer is that it is unfortunately reliant on your biomechanics, and therefore your genetics. For some people, at this moment in their shot, it is simply uncomfortable to have their arm in a position such that their 2 shooting fingers, the index and the middle, rest in the middle line underneath the ball. This is because of a number of different factors, including the relative lengths of your upper arm and forearm, and the natural flexibility of your wrist, elbow, and shoulder. For some people, it is simply unrealistic to demand that their 3 major arm joints be in the same vertical plane at their set point, as we see Kuzma exemplifying. Those who can do so, like Kuzma, Klay Thompson, and as I pointed out in my Kick Genius Shooting Form Breakdown, Trey Good, are just lucky and blessed with great genetics for consistently straight shooting. But fear not, because if you are someone who finds it uncomfortable to get into this position during your shot, whether that's because your wrist is too tight or your shoulder isn't comfortable in that position, there are still examples of great shooters who are similarly built. In fact, the best three-point shooter of all time, Steph Curry, is someone who does not have vertically aligned joints at his set point. If you already watched my Kick Genius breakdown, then still make sure that you keep watching through this because I thought about some details with regards to Curry's technique since I made that video. I paused the video here at Curry's set point, and as you can see, Curry's right elbow sits outside of his shoulder, and his wrist sits inside of his shoulder. The result of this is that his right palm is in contact with the ball at a point that is not underneath the middle line of the ball, unlike Kuzma, who at this point had his palm on the ball almost directly underneath it. So, to maintain a consistently straight shot, in fact the most consistently straight shot, Curry has to perform a slight rotation of the ball in between the moment of his set point and the moment of his release. This rotation allows his right hand to flick the ball forward while being directly underneath it, preventing any non-linear force from being applied to the ball. I pointed all this out in my previous video, but what I failed to mention is how Curry performs this rotation. In my opinion, the slight rotation of the ball in Curry's hands is the reason why he has a thumb flick from his offhand. As the ball moves up, his left hand starts to move, and his thumb from that hand pushes the ball ever so slightly. Notice, however, that Curry's left hand loses contact with the ball just before his right hand flicks to perform the actual release. This suggests that the flick is not designed to affect the moment of the release itself, but rather to change the angle of the ball in his right hand, right before that hand goes on to release the ball. Of course, the thumb flick has traditionally been a huge no-no for basketball coaches.
If you're shooting it with your thumb, you will never be a consistent shooter.
But, given the evidence I see here and elsewhere, I have to disagree that the thumb flick isn't a useful tool for those people who, like Curry, are not comfortable with perfect vertical joint alignment at their set points. In fact, I see no reason why it can't be successfully incorporated into a jump shot. Moving back to Kuzma, I'd like to point out a few other things that he does that are good practice. Notice how when Kuzma has to get his shot off quickly, he tends to hop into his shot. He doesn't always hop, but when he does, the results are usually excellent. You should definitely try hopping into shots if you haven't already, because it produces a slightly different feeling than the traditional 1-2 step. In my opinion, it makes your shot feel more powerful, because it adds a bounciness to the motion that is missing in the 1-2 step. However, I will say that this is probably more mental than anything else, and is therefore a matter of personal preference. I'm just suggesting that you try it before deciding that it's not for you. Next, let's take a look at his set point. Kuzma doesn't have a super low set point, like some of the smaller guards that we are seeing dominating as shooters, like Trae Young, but he still has a non-traditional set point. The bottom of the ball sits at the bottom of his nose at his set point, which is fairly low. Interestingly, Kuzma is just one of the many modern big men who are proving that a low set point is not only efficient for smaller players, but taller players too. People of all heights can benefit from modern release timing combined with a low set point. Even Joel Embiid, a 7-foot center who weighs well over 250 pounds, has found success as a shooter with a low set point, early release timing, and a low jump. Speaking more generally about the set point, I want to discuss something that not many people have pointed out. The term set point originated because old school two-motion shooters used to pause for a moment at the peak of their jumps before pushing the ball forward to the actual release. This is why the word set is used, because it was literally set in place for a moment. Modern one-motion shooters do not have a set point, in that they do not have a moment in which the ball stops in its path to pause or to set. Instead, when I use the term set point, I am mostly referring to the point at which the ball stops being raised, usually with some backward momentum towards the head, and starts being pushed up and forward. Therefore, the set point is most easily identifiable as the moment at which the ball ceases to move backward. This is very difficult to identify in some players with extremely smooth and fast one-motion shots. But with all of these guys, the bottom of the ball is between the forehead and the chin during the so-called set point. Finally, I'd like to give a huge thank you To all of you guys who showed your support by going on your phone and following my new Instagram page. I've been posting regularly on there, so once again, if you're interested in seeing if I practice what I preach, or you just want to show your support for the work that I do on this channel, then feel free to check it out. I've left the link at the top of the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, I hope you enjoyed the video.